Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tom from Came to Believe Recovery, and welcome to our weekly version of Recovery Live. We come to you every Friday at noon Eastern, 11 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Pacific, and 5 o'clock over in the UK to bring subjects of addiction, recovery, and all that is encompassed in all of that. I'm on kind of still on cloud nine. When I got home from California this week, I told somebody I was on cloud 10. I don't know if there is such a thing as cloud 10, but it's one more than nine is. After watching about 90 people sit through our program over the weekend, and really everyone got touched. And we brought a bunch of people from the shelters, city team, and the House of Grace, which are the same places that we went last February where we did them in person. And these men and women came in. They were all obviously different men and women that had come this time and to hear our message. And we did it as a commuter retreat. So this is like the first time we have done a large scale retreat that was a commuter where people went home. We have done them in other places. We did one in St. Joseph's, and Tim D is with us today to talk about that and some other things, but we have done it before, but this is the first time we did it with such a large scale. There's so many people, and we had food to logistics and all. And because of the back team of Casera and Lisa, it all went flawlessly, right? Not one thing was out of place. But I'm wearing my Living in the Go shirt today because I am after the retreat, and it's a big part of what we're going to talk about later in the show, which is what about life now, and what about progress and continuing to grow, and what do we do about that, and how does that look for us in recovery, and maybe just in general in life, getting connected to a purpose that you didn't have before, and where does that come from? But first, I want to bring my buddy Keith F. from California on, and we're going to talk a little bit about this retreat that we just went through with him and I both. Hey, Keith, how are you, buddy?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm great. Is it snowing where you are?
No, we're too low in the elevation, but it's snowing in the nearby mountains.
So Alicia, as you all know on our show, I think, who's one of our volunteers, she just sent me a video of the snow up in Auburn.
Yeah, she's in the mountains. So
Yeah. I mean, it's snowing. Sarah and I were saying it's more snow than we've gotten in New Jersey all year yet, what they have just right now. So you guys in California getting some crazy weather, huh?
you left the weather behind when you left for New Jersey, I think.
I left the weather behind, right? Hey, want to just say hi to some of the guests joining us. Anna, right back at 12 noon. Good to see you back early. Dee's with us, and Doc Roth from Las Vegas. He's a regular. How are you doing, buddy? As everybody's joining us, it's awesome. But Keith, man, what a weekend, right? I mean, can we even fathom what went on? It's hard to explain to people, the feeling, right?
Exactly. I'm still processing this.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things I saw, and it was happening all at once. And all these people, and it was a large crowd. Like you said, 90 people were in this one venue, and their faces just lit up. They were engaged in listening. They didn't walk around like I've seen other places. They stayed in their places and listened. They came the next day, even though they went home. It was rocking there, I tell you.
Keith, that is a great point that you made. In some cases, what we see in meetings too, right? AA meetings and other things is alcoholics can't sit still, right? They're always getting up, going, getting coffee, going, and they're very disruptive. There was very little of that. You're right. Now that you say it, when I was teaching, I don't remember really hardly anybody getting up or down doing anything.
Yeah.
Guys, the way we did it was just like we do it at an on-ground retreat. We did steps 1 and 2 on Friday night with a little intro to 3. We sent people home to think about powerlessness and whether they felt like they needed to be there and whether they were ready for a new power. Then on Saturday, we took them, introduced them to the God of the founders and gave them an opportunity to take on a new manager. And all 90 people were on their knees saying that prayer. And that was really something for me to see everybody out of their seat. Right, Keith?
Yeah. I just don't have words for it. It was awesome.
And we know that some people were making rededications or additional dedications, or some for the first time, deciding that they needed this power. Any way you look at it, it was a submission and a start over at whatever level, from the very beginning or from wherever people were, to make a commitment to pivot. Right, that was the word of the weekend, is to pivot from the way they were to a new way of living that has them living in the go, all green lights, all moving forward, all progress. For you guys who weren't there, Keith shared with us. It's the first time that Keith has shared at a retreat for us. And tell us how long. You were telling us what your sobriety is right now before we came on air.
Yeah, I have 23 months or 1 year and 11 months of sobriety.
So 1 year and 11 months. He's coming up on 2 years.
Yeah.
So we go, okay, 2 years. But we have a section of the retreat where we call our third step experience. And so it's before we teach the third step, and we have somebody come up and tell about, their connection to God and their powerlessness and what happened to them and what they did, and a little bit about their story. And boy, did we hear about Keith's story. Guys, we talk about the 6 hours of a day that you get back. When you quit drinking, in general, everybody gets like 6 hours of their day back, because we figure people start at 5 at night to 11 drinking. Well, Keith told us he started at 3 in the afternoon, and some days sooner.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So if you were in Keith's category, you're getting like 8 hours of your day back, right, buddy?
Even up to 12. Yeah. Getting that many hours back, 12 or 13.
So imagine what we can do at that much time back in our lives. Just amazing things. I want to welcome Richard Moore from London. I don't know if I know you. Great to see you there. Randy Oliver. Hey, Randy. Hey, buddy. Everything's going good. Glad to see you joining us today. So what was your big impression of the weekend, Keith? I mean, you've been to a bunch. Now, guys, let me tell you, Keith has become a retreat addict. And that it's a terrible thing to say, right? Addict. A retreat enthusiast. Let me use that word.
Yes, exactly.
Right. So that was your 7th retreat in this short time that you've been sober, right?
Okay. Well, 6th, but yeah.
6th retreat.
It's a lot since, January of last year.
And we see this, guys, a lot, is people jump right on board. Alicia Martinez is one of them. The rest of us, I jumped right on board. Most of them that came, Dale Marsh, you come to one, and if the thing catches you, you just keep going. What was if you thought about one, kind of overriding impression from the weekend, what would it be?
Just the enthusiasm of the people who were there, just in their faces. Like when I was speaking, I could look out in the audience, and they were all they're engaged, they're listening to what I was saying, they laughed where they were supposed to. And, they totally related to what I was saying. I tried to express how I felt during my low point, and they could all get it. And some people even talked about it afterwards and said they'd done that. They'd been there. And so just how engaged they were during the whole retreat was what really struck me. And they were asking questions, and wanted to do more and more. I thought that's good. That's a good more thing to want, is information.
I'm thinking about, as you were talking, that I think that's maybe one of my great takeaways too. Because when I was teaching and I taught on Saturday and Sunday, the level of engagement was impressive. I mean, like you're saying, not only were they not getting up and walking out, but they were nodding their heads and smiling, and you could see them chatting with each other. Um, and it was growing through the weekend.
Yeah.
And the smiles were getting bigger, the happiness, and you could tell they were getting it, and that it was instilling hope. And that's one of the things we love to do, right? Is get that hope that no, everything might not be perfect leaving the weekend, but you sure can start digging out of the hole starting that Monday morning.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And
Um,
we're here to help with our meetings. And you know, I gave my phone number out to several people. I picked up a sponsee at the end of
wow.
it. You know, so it didn't just end on Sunday. It's more. There's more to it.
It's more, and we have, and as of late, been even more and more adamant in our um, teaching of 10, 11, and 12, and telling people that that's what keeps people in, is doing 10, 11, and 12, and is the tools for growth and to keep us in this, what we call recovered,
Yeah.
because we know that we can be. The big book of AA says we can. And if you do what they did, you'll get what they got. And what they got was a state of being recovered and a whole bunch of other stuff. Right, buddy?
Yes. Absolutely.
So, um, well, it was great. It was great having you, my friend. I know that we're going to have you on again. You're part of our leadership team. Now we're going to be in Nevada City in May, and then we'll probably be back out doing another commuter retreat. We're going to be down in Malibu. So California is a big expansion for us these days. So um,
Well,
having a good team with us, an even better team now that Keith has joined, is just a blessing, and it keeps us moving forward. And you're just a great um, addition to have on the ground there, and helping us with the aftercare too, and all the follow up, Keith.
well, thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on with us today, Keith. And I'll be in touch with you soon. And have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
It was so great, guys, that Keith's story, sometimes people come on and share something, and then everyone comments on it over the weekend. All the speakers say, remember when so-and-so said so-and-so, and everyone was talking about what Keith talked about after he spoke, pointing out things that he had said. It was really impactful for everybody, what he shared, and it fit right in with what we were teaching. Jamie West has joined us. Dee started drinking in the morning, end of her career. A lot of us did some. I didn't do too much morning drinking. I did it on the weekends, maybe, but I was usually too hungover. But I would start pretty quick in the afternoon if I could, and depended on if there was cocaine. We never stopped when there was cocaine. You just kept going. So I'm wearing my Living in the Go shirt, and so is Keith. And what we talk about a lot at Came to Believe Recovery, or the working the program of recovery, is what happens after you have this spiritual awakening as the result of this course of action. What does life look like later? And not only for us in addiction and recovery, maybe in just in life, in how we connect with a power, God, however we identify it at whatever point we are in our life. And how do we understand what is growth and what is working and what isn't, and all sorts of stuff around this idea of making a transition in life out of a way of life that we had to a new way. And what do we do about it? So my buddy from St. Joseph, Missouri, is going to join me for a lively discussion on what happens after we make this transition. Welcome my buddy, Tim Doyle.
Major Tom.
Oh, I'm a major. I one of these days I want to be colonel.
Colonel, I'll make a note of that.
I'm hoping
for next time.
Yeah. Steve Foreman is general. I always call him the general, and he calls me the major. We actually now do our emails that way. Major and general. I said, am I going to be a colonel? Once in a while, if I do something really good, Tim, he'll say colonel.
Oh.
But it's like a battlefield commission, and then he takes it away.
Right. Exactly.
Pulls it right down.
Good to see you, Tom. It's been a while.
It's been a while, my friend. How's it going down there in St. Joseph?
We love it, man. I tell you, making progress. Sometimes the progress, I tell people it's like a slow train, but we're still
Mhm.
shoveling coal into the firebox, and we're making
Mhm.
progress. So that's good.
It's good. I was on the phone and had a meeting with the Archway group, and the Archway, they're in St. Louis, Tim.
Right.
And Archway wants to start working with us at some level, and they
Oh,
are connected with some of the street ministries and some
very
of the
cool.
peer reviewed and all this stuff that goes on in your area
Yep.
and in St. Louis.
Yep.
And we have a call with them in. Now that I'm thinking about it, you should be on that call with us if you want. I'll forward you
Yeah.
the invite and see if you want to join us.
Very cool. Love that.
So I'll be coming down sometime in the spring for that anyway, and I'll come
Yeah.
to see you. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. You
it'll
know,
be
it's been, as you know, it's been slower going than we anticipated,
Mhm.
getting traction on the ground here, but that's okay. And that's one thing I'm learning about addiction recovery is it's not a straight line. Oftentimes
Mhm.
it's, a little bit of a jig jag, and you just keep walking the process and don't give up. And that's all right. We can do that.
We have to do it.
You have to.
We have
What
to do
other
it.
option do you
Yeah,
have?
yeah.
Yeah.
I was reading a statistic the other day. I was reading in Alcoholics Anonymous's their official guidebook stuff because I was just looking up some things. And Alcoholics Anonymous kind of preaches they assume everyone will relapse at least once.
Mm,
And I thought that's awful sad
yeah.
to think that the assumption is that everyone will relapse once at least. I mean, we see these things happening, but we're going to be there for them
Right.
because when they come back, how many times do we let them come back when they want it every time?
Right.
Right? We
Exactly.
never say no. If
Exactly.
they make an honest attempt, we want them to come back.
Yep.
When we talk about living in the go, we talk about what are the principles behind the program that we present. And we've talked about this on this show before, and they're all Christian principles. It all comes out of the Bible, Matthew 5, 6, and 7. And Tim, it's all about a way of living that we're teaching people. It's all about a set of tools that they can use, but it does kind of hinge upon getting rid of this powerlessness
Mm.
that many of us felt. And it's so important for us to find a connection. You had a great quote. What was that quote you had right before we came on?
Well, it's interesting. I was talking with our guys last night about this very thing, and a lot of the guys have had addiction backgrounds, and so we actually were on a different subject, but this topic of addiction came up, and the quote from the material that we're studying said this: "The opposite of addiction is not sobriety; it's connection." And boy, that really landed in a good way with our guys, because if sobriety is the goal, and here's what I wrote in my notes: our connection is our addiction. When we gather around our addiction instead of direction, the future, where we're going versus where we've been. So that's what I've seen in some of the people that we've had a chance to deal with is when our connection is based around our addiction, there really is no future. We just have to continue on this cycle. And again, and I don't want to step on toes or be disrespectful to any other program, but I feel sometimes when we gather around that principle that we are our addiction, there really is no escape. You're in that gravity well and you're just orbiting the same problem. And like you said, Tom, having various degrees of success, sometimes for longer term, but really the long-term answer is to find something to gravitate around other than your addiction. So yeah, there has to be a positive direction set so that we have a better bearing for our compass to follow.
So that is, we're embracing this person first mentality here. So we wouldn't want anyone to identify as an addict. It's terrible to say I am an addict.
Right.
No, I'm a person suffering from alcohol disorder or a person suffering from. So that's exactly what you're saying, Tim, is if you if you rally around your addiction, identify yourself as that, and kind of embrace a void. Okay.
Right.
So you've decided I'm an addict. I'm going to give up the substance, and I'm going to rally around a bunch of people that are giving up that substance.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to rally around that subject. What do you call it? No direction?
Right. No direction. I said the future, where we're going
Mm,
versus where we've been. And that's to me so important. And I've seen that, Tom. And again, I have great respect for programs that have helped people come to where they're at, but then I don't see them being able to take the next step, which is to get away from that place where our only connection is our addiction, even if it's what we used to do, but we're still identifying with that. And isn't that the core issue? Is identity? Who
yeah.
are we? I know you said it best. It's like we're humans first. We're people first. And we have these issues and stuff that we all deal with to various degrees, but we all want to get out of that place where we're just continuing to rehash, recycle the problem and get to a place of health, wholeness, and direction. So that's what's fueling us.
So, so much is, or you and I could just keep going and talking about this all day. Even the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says, we feel a man unthinking if he thinks sobriety is enough.
Wow.
So at the beginning, they thought it was, unthinking.
Right.
And identity, working towards an identity is so important. I just finished a book called Atomic Habits. Atomic Habits. And one of the cores was creating habits that match an identity that you have, not a thing you want to be. So
Right.
like, instead of being, I just want to not drink today, which is certainly something that some people want at the beginning. But what I want to be is a whole person free of my addiction. And I'm that's my identity.
Right.
In health and exercise, we say, I don't want to get a little healthier. I want to be healthy. Like in your case, you're going to say, I'm a gym goer.
That's right.
Right. Not, I'm going to try to go once.
Right.
Sorry, guys. I have to always
get
my shot at Tim.
He does. He's jealous of my physique is what it is.
So jealous. But when we, that's the secret behind recovered. So we say we're recovered because that's the identity we're working towards.
Right.
And recovered means I'm this person and I work towards it, but I'm working towards my identity, which has me free and with direction in the future.
Yeah.
So,
I'm thinking, Tom, an example in my own life where I was raised in a pretty dysfunctional home where alcohol was, a part of the deal, but it was just a dysfunction, just overall, just not healthy relationships. And when I made a decision to better my life and get healthy and get well and have a direction and go for it, I found my nuclear family that I grew up around, really, they didn't like it. They were kind of jealous of it. And I became the black sheep of the family. And that's why I wear the clothes. It's like I'm the black sheep. And I, what I can say about that is I see sometimes men and women in addiction recovery, and I'm for them and I champion them. But I also see a lot of the drama and the dysfunction that exists within that family, if you will, that is centered on our addiction. And at some point, you've got to get out of that. You got to shift gears. Not that we distance ourselves or that we don't like people in that category anymore, but for ourselves, we've got a different goal. We've got a different trajectory that our life is on. And I think without that, again, you just keep orbiting around the same planet, and it's not easy. But when you've got people around you, let me read you another quote from this information, Tom. I thought was so good. This guy says, in order to step into freedom from addiction, we must step out of the cage of isolation and into the area of family, belonging, and vulnerability. No, I think to a degree, sometimes these different recovery models offer that. But when the family itself is centered on the addiction, that's where I think we could probably find a healthier model.
And, giving the recovered person the tools to be able to go back in and the support
Exactly.
is so important. And we do that. We try to do that. We try to send to target for people. One of the things we say, Tim, is that it's okay for us to get healthier than those around us.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
it's what happens. I'm sure this is what happened to you. But what you were experiencing was you were getting emotionally, spiritually, physically, probably healthier
Mm-hmm.
than the family around you, and
Right.
you're embracing all these new avenues of life,
Yep.
and they weren't. So you
Right.
grew separate.
Right.
Very difficult. And I found, Tim, too, that I had to kind of, so they don't steal your joy, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I had to limit and be very judicious about approaches to certain people after I got sober, because they just didn't get it. And it could be hurtful to me.
Right. And some of the guys in our group last night were talking about their addiction to pornography. So that's different than a substance addiction, but still, it's
Mhm.
life controlling, it's relationship busting. And I was so proud of the guys for being vulnerable. And again, the definition of vulnerability versus transparency. Vulnerability means you can touch me, I'm accessible, versus transparency. I'm in this transparent bulletproof cage, so you can see me, but you can't touch me. So
Mm.
vulnerability is, no, I'm going to really reveal my true self to you and allow you close enough that, as the proverb says, iron can sharpen iron. That's what it takes, that type of connection.
Mm.
And truthfully, I need someone who's had some success, someone who've had some victories on the battlefield to call me up higher. I don't want to just commiserate with people who are in the same place I'm at. I want to look at that guy and say, man, I want to have a family like that. I want to be a husband like that. I want to be a father like he's fathering his kids, and call me up higher to a different level. And I think that's what is being referred to here about vulnerability and family. And to a degree, again, I think we have family sometimes in those addiction recovery programs, but is it calling you up higher? That's what I want for our people.
Our book says, if you want what we have, you'll thoroughly follow our path. So we tell people, find somebody that has a life that you want.
Yep.
And just what you're saying, let's look up. Let's iron sharpen iron. Let's be improving. Let's look at someone who's been successful at it, and let's mimic that, and let's connect with that.
Yep.
In growth, because it's about growth.
And that's the thing, Tom, that I've been frustrated in a positive way to help people find out that there's more than just continuing to find the next meeting to go to. And again, I'm thankful for the meetings. I'm glad they bring help to folks that need it, but I want to see them take the next step. It's like stairway, and I want to see them begin to climb a little higher, from the place where they began. And then, as you say, we can reach down and help others find that as well. My conviction is you need more than the group that you're attending. You just do. And you shouldn't have to go to a group like, Tom, if it was, you had to come to a came to believe retreat every weekend just to stay in the go, there'd be something wrong with that model. It'd be great for the ministry or the program, because now you've got those people addicted to you, right?
Right.
So what we want is for them to have success, to continue on and just fly. And that's, I think, what you and I both want.
Yeah. Now that's interesting that you say, we see repeat people coming back, like Keith, who comes back to our retreat, but he comes back practicing living in the go for others.
Exactly.
And the last thing we'd want is someone coming back saying, I need another retreat just to keep me sober.
Yep.
We're missing the mark if that happens. It's kind of this, before we got on, we were having this discussion backstage, and Casera was talking about this void that can happen with some people who drop a substance,
right,
or an activity or a behavior. And this is what we're kind of talking about, Tim, is this, what are you connected with, and who are you surrounding yourself with once you've just decided to? and what's your goal, right? Your identity.
Yeah.
If your identity is, I just need to stop this drink, and you go to these meetings, that void is a dangerous place to be, I think.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. We had a gentleman in our midst that was going through recovery and had a tragedy in his family. He was doing so well. Then he had a tragedy. And when that happened, he just slid right back, probably worse than where he was before. And it was because he didn't have anything else to lean into, you know. He was doing well, you know, he was going to his meetings and was making success, but he didn't grasp onto the next rung of the ladder. And
right?
because of that, it was easier for him to fall back, you know, in the absence of anything substantive to have them make continued progress. So it makes me sad, but it makes me motivated too to help men and women who are struggling, like you said, whether it's sugar, whether it's pornography, whether it's meth. Um, I just see as a pastor, the healthy family model. That's what I'm wanting to create.
Right. And there's such a crossover, I think, Tim, with what you see, and you and I've had discussions about this, of what
Yeah.
you see in just church attendance, and the same thing with meeting attendance.
Right.
What we preach, and I know you do too, is a relationship, is
Yeah.
this thing that touches us, and it is this living in the go. It's this power that takes the void away and guides us
Right.
to living. But it can't, we've often said, Tim, if you go to a meeting a day and that's what's keeping you sober, what are you doing the other 23 hours?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
The same with church. If we're preaching and teaching that attendance to a service that's an hour a week, an hour and a half,
Right.
it can't possibly be the thing that
Yep.
that is our, it's supportive and it's uplifting and it's part of community, and meetings are. But meetings are where we're fellowshipping and we're meeting another person who is hurting, and it's a place where they know where to come, and they need to meet us there.
Yeah.
They need to meet you when they come to church to
Right.
say, this is what we're going to do this Sunday right now.
Exactly.
But what we're telling you to do is live with this power and figure out how to live and keep growing. And we're going to support you all the way. But that's the goal.
Mhm.
Is
Yep.
now,
It's not enough just to check the box. Been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. No offense to what you're wearing now. So
right.
it takes more than the t-shirt. It takes a lifestyle, a commitment. And what's interesting, Tom, is I go into prisons quite a bit, and I love the men in the prisons. I just do, because their addiction typically is what put them where they're at. And of course, now they're removed from the substance, so they're clean. But it's so common for them, once they get out, they go right back to it. So there has to be something else that will help prevent them from slipping back into the thing that got them there. So maybe the rest of us, I used to tell people that I would often travel and do a seminar in a prison one day and then a church the next day. And I said the only difference in those two groups of men was the group in the prison were behind bars that you could see. The guys on the
Wow.
outside were behind bars you couldn't see, and they were the more dangerous crowd because they didn't realize what they were missing out on and the opportunities that were before them. The guys on the inside knew that. They knew they'd blown it. They being sentenced and, if you will, punished, for their behavior, their crime. But I also find that they're the ones that are more hungry. Say, I want to do better with my life. I want to do better for my family. I've got kids that, the mother of those children don't want me to hang around them or have any contact. And so they're in so much pain and looking for answers. And I think sometimes, I hate it that it takes pain to drive us to a solution. But once we get clean, once we are getting success from the addictive behavior that got us there, we need something else to live for now than just staying clean. It's got to be a better trajectory, a better goal to shoot for. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. So let's start talking about that. Where does this power come from? And then what does it look like in your life? And I'm going to read you some stuff out of our literature, and we can talk about when people say, well, I'm in this void place, I'm in this connection with all these addicts, but why am I not feeling this freedom? And there's some very clear passages through our literature that say this is what it's supposed to look like with this power. Now, Tim said it's not about a t-shirt. I have to say this just because he doesn't have one. So he said, put down the t-shirt.
I'm jealous of the t-shirt. So
yes, he's just, we just always have to, as Dale Barker says, give people a chance to grow. It's a chance to grow. Absolutely. And then I have to do a step 10 later because, I feel bad. Now I got to get a shirt over to Tim really quick.
Right. That's right.
We're going to get you a living in the. I think we gave you one of these orange shirts.
I don't think I've seen those living in the go shirts. I've
we
seen
might
your logo shirt.
Yeah, we might not have had these when we came to see you, but something tells me one is going to show up on your doorstep. So let's look real quick before we don't want to run out of time because you and I are going to go on and on with this. But so in the program of recovery, right? The first thing we have to do is to just determine that we're powerless and that our life is unmanageable. So it's this place where people get to a real brokenness in whatever gets them broken, Tim, to this place where they just can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And they haven't received any kind of comfort or freedom or any way out. And there's a physical element to this too, that they just sometimes feel like there is no way out.
Yeah.
To when you're have a substance. Well, the first thing our big book says, this is at the 9th step part. It says, at the moment we're trying to put our lives in order. There's a big indication right there. It's not just getting off the substance. It's we're trying to put our lives in order. Mm-hmm. So for those of you out there who feel like sobriety is enough and you're going to live in that void, that isn't what we're talking about here. We're talking about getting our lives in order. And it's not an end in itself. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. Mm-hmm. So now we're going to open up this God window here for people. Right now, everybody freaks out, right, Tim? God, there they go. They're going to make me do something. They're going to make me do something, right?
It's to a point, Tom, where I don't even introduce myself as a pastor.
Right?
Because it comes with a preconceived idea of who I am and my agenda. It's like, that's not me.
Oh, wow. Look at that comment. Live in the Go retreats are only for volunteers. If you volunteer at a retreat, then you can have one too. Well, he did volunteer at a retreat. You did volunteer in St. Joe's. So we're gonna call you qualified. We're gonna get you. He was right there at the retreat helping us volunteer. And he sat through the whole thing.
I did.
He sat through the whole thing.
I did.
So when I grew up in a church I don't know that they were putting this forth, Tim, because I will get in trouble if I say this is what this denomination stands for, because I don't know that. But I can tell you what I got out of it. And what I got out of it was all you had to do was check the box. It was show up and check the box on Sunday.
And put something in the box.
Right. And put something in the box. Right. Check the box and put something in the box. And at least definitely for my addiction and for my whole life, when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to a concept of God and a higher power, it didn't do it for me. I knew who God was, but I had no relationship with him. A lot of people know God, believe in God, I should say, right? I believe in God, but they don't know him. Now, you and I know this is a tough thing for some people. How do you know? And when you know, right?
Yeah.
And when I got to a place where I made a surrender and said, basically, I've heard about you, this God, my whole life. I've heard, I've read, I've gone to churches and things and seen it on this plane, but I need this thing to enter my heart, my soul, and my spirit and enliven me. Mm-hmm. And I was at a place where I made a surrender to the point where I did get touched, Tim. I did. And so I'm talking to all of our audience that God touched me. He touched me like he touched the founders. And the Bible came alive to me. And my belief that God had a son, we'll call him Jesus C for his anonymity today,
Okay.
just for here, was the power that has lifted me. And I can talk about that for myself. And I know that this is the same for you. But that connection was a big deal. Tim, the big thing that we, what you were saying before is as soon as you say pastor, you're put in a box,
Exactly.
right? Of
Yep.
something. Well, it's the same thing when we say it at retreats, God, and it's the God of the Bible. And when you say Jesus see, all of a sudden we're put in some box
Right.
that even he didn't put people in.
Yep.
And we always say, we're not talking about a church. We're not talking about a set of rules. What we'd love you to do is follow some of the tools we're teaching you that were talked about back with this God back then that are really functional today. And that's where I found freedom, Tim. When I began a way of living, when I commenced a way of life that embraced these principles and walked in and walked it in my everyday life, that's when I saw freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's right on, Tom. And I'm like you. I try not to come out of the opening with a big salvo of, this is what you need to do. I think it's a discovery process. I really do. I see that Jesus himself used that approach. I always like to use the example of the woman at the well. By religious rules, he shouldn't have been talking to a woman, number one, because culturally that was taboo. Number two, she was a Samaritan, so a hated people group. So Jesus blew up both those boxes right from the get-go. And then he engaged her in dialogue. He showed an interest in her. He built a relationship, if you will, before he was able to speak truth to her. Now, he did speak truth. So people will say, well, we're supposed to speak the truth in love. And I'm like, right. But look at how Jesus did that. There was a way that he invited her into a conversation. He showed her that he honored and respected her as a person. And when the moment was right, he said, well, here's the truth. So I think that approach is beautiful. And I think it's helpful. And especially in this culture where Christianity has become a bad word and where there has been a lot of church hurt. I mean, who hasn't been hurt by churches? So don't use that as an excuse. But I have to fight through all that cultural garbage in order to get to the point where people see my genuine heart for them. And I'm not after an agenda. I'm not after a certain response. I just want them to experience freedom. And if that's what they truly want and they're willing to walk in relationship, let's do that. And I don't expect perfection because I'm not. If that's the case, none of us are qualified. So, in a sense, we're all on that journey to discover who we were created to be. And like you, Tom, my conviction is that's the God of the Bible. I think there really isn't true freedom apart from that pathway. But that's something people have to discover for themselves. So I'm not going to be so dogmatic as to insist they do it my way. Nope. No, I think what you should do is stay on the journey, stay in the process, and hook up with people that you're like, they've got something. I don't know what it is. I don't really care what you call it, but I'm interested in that. Years ago, Tom, I was a part of a fraternity in college, and alcohol was a big deal in the fraternity, right? And I didn't preach to my guys, they just saw my lifestyle. And one by one, those guys would come to me. Oftentimes they would knock on my door at 2 or 3 in the morning, and they'd had a binger, that night. And remember, one guy brought me the bottle that he was drinking from and tore off the label, put his name on it, and said, I want you to have this as just a symbol of my desire to be accountable to you because I'm tired of living like this. And I want to walk with you, and I think, Tom, that just, man, that makes me tear up because it's beautiful. And I even love our men and women that are struggling in addiction now that come and they'll disappear for 2 or 3 months. And when they come back, their physical appearance is so different and it breaks my heart. But what do? I wrap my arms around them and I say, it's so good to see you again, man. So glad that you're here. So instead of saying, well, you screwed up, you didn't follow the rules, You did what we told you not to do, so you come back when you're cleaned up. Listen, that's not how God handles us. I love the prodigal son story, where the kid
Right.
off in the pig pen doing his thing, right, thinking that's going to satisfy him, comes to his senses, the Bible says, comes back home thinking, gosh, I'm not worthy to be a son. I'm just going to see if I can be a slave in my father's house. And what does that father do? I like to imagine that he's been straining, looking down the road ever since that boy left, with bloodshot eyes, scanning the horizon, waiting for a sign that his boy was coming home. And as soon as he saw the dusty feet coming down the road, he ran to him and he threw his arms around him. And I said, and he still smells like the pig pen, right? He's still got pig poop all over him. He didn't say, well, go through these steps and then I'll accept you. No. He said, this is my son who was dead and is alive. He threw a party. He gave him a robe and a ring and sandals. And, I think if we had that kind of approach to people, again, as we said before, see them as people first, see them as sons and daughters. I think we'd get a lot more traction as the church versus making them follow our checklist of rules.
And that's inspiring me, Tim. I've been so working, and a lot of this has to do with Casera in the background, reaching these communities that where the people don't want, in this harm reduction field, where we're out in this place where they're not even interested in doing doing anything except want to keep them alive.
Yeah.
What you said, Tim, is on top of when Jesus went to the well with the women, on top of him breaking all these rules.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this feeds into what you said too. We're all assuming, guys, that now Jesus, he's God, so he knows everything. He knew the woman had 5 husbands or
Right.
5 boyfriends, whatever.
Right.
Like, he knew that. So not only did he break all the religious rules, he went and talked to her without saying, well, before I'm going to talk to you, you have to get rid of all of them.
Yeah.
All right. And the same with the prodigal son. They came home. He didn't say, okay, but first you have to do this. So, and that's what we do. We meet people where they're at without telling them what they have to do.
Yep.
If we did that, that's just the whole harm reduction model. If we go out to the street and say, give up the needle, give up that, and then we'll come and talk to you or help you, or we won't feed you until we give you the needle, right?
Right.
This just doesn't make sense for us, right? A dead person is not any good for anything. And we're not the ones that touch them.
Exactly.
For me, I needed to have a touch. Tim, I do this little exercise at each retreat where I have everybody fold the paper and they tear the corners off. I think I did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what it exposes the fact that we're all so individual.
Yeah.
And we're unique because no one's paper's the same. So that's a freedom to me when I'm going to have a relationship with God that says, and we preach this, it's not my relationship that you need. It's your relationship.
Yep.
And it's not in a box.
Yep.
And so many people are biased and prejudiced today, Tim, because they think God has got a box for them.
Mm-hmm.
And what he actually has is freedom. And once you get that connection, and it's your connection, he wants to have a relationship with you. Imagine that, right? You tell people, I was telling them in California last week. So if he made you so perfect and individual, he cares that much to make you. What makes you think he wouldn't want to have a relationship with you that's perfect and individual?
Yeah, that's right.
And understands you and all your little whining and crying and, I don't have an orange shirt, I got to get an orange shirt. But it's a comfort and it's a power in being able to say, great, then I can reach out to him. And it really does clear prejudice and bias. It's kind of the beauty of really what Jesus did and what we're trying to do.
Yep. Paul calls it, the body. We need every member of the body to do what they're good at. And there's a guy in our circle of friends who has come out of addiction, some really bad stuff. And now, I call him Captain Jack Sparrow. So that gives you an idea of kind of who he is. He's kind of this crazy wild guy, and he's not afraid to go down to the river where the homeless people are camping and hang out with them. He'll go down there at 9 p.m., midnight, just to hang out and be friends with them. And what do you need? You need some socks? I can get you some socks. So he'll run to the church and grab some stuff and go back down. It's like he's got a gift that I don't have, but we need what he brings to the whole. His experience, his background gives him an ability to relate, but he's done such a great job with his life. And he doesn't go to any meetings, he just hangs around some good people to sharpen him, to help challenge him where he needs it, and to encourage him. And like I say, throw gas on that fire, and
Yeah.
say, "Go, baby, go." And that's beautiful. And I think that's the model. To me, that's the most effective. Not that everyone looks and sounds and acts exactly the same, but that we truly live in the life
Mhm.
that we were created for. And
Mhm.
it's going to look different on each person, but it all looks like freedom, and it all is awesome.
Well, there's a mic drop, another mic drop, right? Casero will put that up in a second. Mic drop. So just for you guys, let's define some things. Let's see. I'm going to pull some stuff out of the literature, Tim, so they don't think it's just
Yeah.
you and I talking about
Yeah.
this. Okay. So if you're in addiction and you're in recovery, or let's say you're listening to us and you're not, you're just living your life, right? And some of this does not define you. Maybe it would make me think, because it sounds like a nice life if my life was defined by this. So listen to this, Tim. Now, in the book, it says if we're painstaking about this phase of our development, and this is the phase where people are going out and making amends for the things that they've done. It's a phase after they've made a submission and they've done a moral inventory. But it says this: if we're painstaking, we'll be amazed before we're halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. For some people, it's the first time they ever felt freedom and happiness. Where we'll not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We can be free from shame and guilt and regret. We'll comprehend the word serenity and know peace. Think about that, guys. Does that define you today? No matter how far down the scale we are going, we'll see how our experience can benefit others. We're not worthless. Our story matters.
Awesome.
That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We're going to get off the pot, as it were. We're not useless. We're valuable, and we're going to go out and make a difference in the world. And we can go to college, or we can go learn a new job, or we can get our relationships back. Self-seeking slips away, and our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. That's a huge thing. Our identity changes. This is what happened to these guys and me when I did this. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. That doesn't mean you're going to be rich. It means the fear of economic insecurity.
Right.
That's a very different. We'll intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us, and we'll suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Guys, those are some signs. If you're in a void, if you've just taken away the substance and you're sitting around and you haven't replaced it with anything, and you're starting to feel, you come out of it. I would hate that. I'd rather be drinking than out of it and not have this.
Right.
There's more for you. And if that's not enough, Tim, on step 10, it says, and we've ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. And I'm going to say drugs or pornography or food addiction or whatever it has in your brokenness. For this time, sanity will have returned. We'll seldom be interested in liquor or drugs or alcohol. There's no interest in it anymore. We're not white knuckling. If tempted, we recoil from it. And I'll even say the temptations go very quickly. There isn't even temptation. We act sanely and normally. We'll find that this happens automatically. We see our new attitude has been given to us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. This is the miracle of it. We're not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We've not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We're not cocky or afraid. This is our experience. This is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition.
That's good.
Get your spiritual condition, guys, whatever that is. Get it fit. Alicia and I would love that fit part, Tim. You got spiritual condition, but fit. We're going to separate those.
Yeah.
So
especially if you eat meat all the time.
Eat meat all the time. She said she does. She brought all her meat with her
I'm
in
sure she
Nevada
did.
City. She does. She's about the most disciplined person I know when it comes to all that. She's probably listening to us. But guys, that is the definition of what our lives are look like. And that is what my life looks like and feels like with my spirit full. And I'm not living in a void. There's not a vacuum when I removed it. And I needed that. That's what kept me and launched me into living in the go, which has launched all sorts of success and all sorts of things that I've done to move forward and grow and come up to that next level and want to bring others up to that next level too.
Mhm.
Really, guys, think about this. If any of that I read sounds attractive to you and you're not getting it, a program like we have and we define introduces this life to you that allows for this condition to exist in your character. And it's an awesome thing. I dare anybody that's listening to say that a life defined by that wouldn't be a whole lot better than what they were leading.
And then find a family to walk with you. You know, it's not a one-off experience. It's a journey. And we're all in process together. And that's what makes this awesome.
Right. It's all in this together. We're in it together. And that freedom and that new openness, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Well, my friend, we have 2 minutes.
We did good, I think.
We did really good.
I feel good.
I think this is such an important conversation. It's so much about what we want to talk about now is that you've got to embrace this power that you've, taken on in your life. And if you don't have one, boy, oh boy, reach out, seek, honestly, right, Tim? I mean, if you're just so confused, find some people that have something you want and ask them what they did and figure out and get yourself connected, because boy, when you're connected to the right power source, there's nothing we can't do. The light goes on.
And life is too short to live any other way.
Any other way. All right, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on.
Tom.
We'll have you on again, I'm sure. And I'm looking forward to coming back down and hanging with you guys down there in St. Joseph.
And I will wear the shirt. I will.
If we send you one, you'll wear it. Well, you do live in the go. I mean, guys, all kidding aside, if anybody that I know across the country that lives in the go, it's Tim. It's the real deal. What he says here is who he is. He is. And so,
thank you, Tom. Appreciate that.
All right, buddy. All right. You have a great weekend and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks everybody for joining us here on Friday Recovery Live. We'll see you here again next week. In 2 weeks, we get to do some fitness recovery stuff. Alicia and I are just can't wait for that week to come. The week where we actually are going to bring someone on from the Phoenix program who you recover from fitness. And so it's going to be a wonderful program. So everybody have a great weekend, and we will see you next week right here at the same time, 12 noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, 5 p.m. in the UK on Recovery Live. Have a great weekend, guys.